I noticed a guy who, of course, he needed thousands and thousands of clones, to do these acres of outdoor greenhouses or even hybrid greenhouses. And I noticed that, when I take clones, I probably take 4, 5, even 6-inch clones because I have all these, I can bury it a couple of inches and I'm going to top and do all these things. But, when you take commercial agricultural clones, they're usually pretty small. They're usually 2 to 3-inch clones. And what I was noticing was that basically, as soon as they had grown an inch and rooted, they were topping them. And I asked him, I said, do you do that all the time? Do you top your clones so early? And he explained to me how this is a really important technique because I used to wait until the plant was virtually developed, like 5th node, 7th node, multiple sets of full leaves and branching already coming out. And then I'd use this spiral staircase technique where I take a leaf from each side to open it up. No, top your plants as soon as possible because what that's going to do is as soon as you top them, it's going to encourage lateral branching. And now your lateral branching is going to be the height of your plant instead of having any apical top whatsoever, virtually. So that's something that I did learn early is top as early as you are comfortable with.
And so topping, for those that don't know, is really just taking the top of the plant and either pinching it off or using trimmers to trim it off. So are you a pincher or a cutter?
I've always been a pincher. I never had any trouble visualizing where I was supposed to do that. The top of the plant is just simply the top of the plant. And you should just take off a burgeoning, newly opening set of leaves and pinch. And then, of course, there's that old technique that came about from a tip of the month that I wrote in High Times magazine that got labeled FIMing. And I love this story because FIMing, everybody would swear it means bleep I missed, right? Because the theory was that if you cut it cleanly, like with a scissor, that it's not going to grow back, and then the two nodes that would have popped out on the side of the stem is what's going to take over, and you have a nice clean V. But if you kind of mess it up and make it all messy, sometimes, very often, nodes will shoot out of there in addition. And sometimes there's 3, 4, 5, crazy numbers of them shoot out depending on your growth rate and stuff. But it was never intended to be FIMing. The tip of the month came from a dude who signed his letter FIM. I believe it was his name. It was from FIM. Didn't say anything about missed. Just the culture itself attached that acronym to it. And I think that that's hilarious.
That is hilarious. I had no idea that was the case. I heard the F I missed. I heard that one, but I didn't hear about it actually being somebody's initials or name or whatever.
Yeah, I love that.
So when you do the topping or the FIMing, what node are you waiting until the plant has grown up to before you do your first topping or FIM?
Well, I used to wait for 5, maybe even 6 or 7 complete sets, which would mean that you'd already had 1 or 2 sets of branching coming out. And so the top of your plant is at least several inches taller than those side satellite branches. And like I said, what I saw in a commercial setting is that, do it as soon as you know that your plant is flourishing. And that's going to allow you to have a wider plant rather than a taller plant. Because the plant is just programmed to grow as tall as possible because in the big bad jungle, the actual jungle where things grow, the one who grows the tallest gets the most sunlight. And very often, ones that don't grow tall enough don't get any sunlight and literally just croak and die. So I mean, it's going to depend on where you took your cutting. But so that's why I say it's not really, it doesn't really matter the actual maturity size of the plant, how many nodes it has. What matters is that you've planted it and watered it, and the roots that were coming out of your clone are now coming out of the media in which you planted it. As soon as you see that, it's acceptable to top it.
Understood. For me, I usually grow from seeds, so I am kind of one of the guys who are counting the nodes, and I usually do it at like the 4th or the 5th. Now, do you just do one topping, or do you do your initial top and then top some of those side branches that kind of grow up?
Well, it kind of depends on whether you're, if you're growing for commercial, then you really try to condense practices into the most effective, most efficient. And I think that that's probably a singular top and probably a singular transplant, into its final home. When you have options to, I see these guys growing on lines where they interweave the plants and they make them look all pretty and they put them through the chicken wire. And, I think one top is most of the time is going to be sufficient. It's only when you and I'll say the reason why I say that is because by the time you get to the thought of topping a second time on that same plant, I think that there's a better way of utilizing that vegetation than there is topping it off. Of course, the secondary goal of topping, other than yield enhancement, is maximizing the space that you have. And if that top that you're thinking about topping again is because if you bent it over or tucked it under somewhere, it would just be growing outside of the horizontal space that you want for that plant, then you should take it off. So that's my explanation is one top should be sufficient, but if you feel like if there's some satellites that are growing out of the way and you don't think you can weave it somewhere or put it somewhere efficient, then top it again, and of course the nodes will just take their place. No topping once you flip flowering unless you missed it. You should know by then whether you want to use that piece of vegetation to gain mature flowers or not. If you've noticed a piece underneath that you missed and it's not going to do it, get rid of it. If something is shooting up and you don't like it, but the best thing to do would be to bend that down and just secure it with a twist tie or a piece of string or the super cropping technique, and then utilize that vegetation rather than chop it off and throw it in the garbage.
Really good advice there. Yeah, and I'm with you on the one top. I've done it so many ways over the years. Top once and then top those branches again, and I played around a lot. And I find myself in the past 5+ years really just doing that one top, letting those side branches come out, and then just doing low stress training from there, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But
right.
But yeah, the one top. One of the main reasons why I do it is just to get that side branching. There's some phenos out there that'll grow, and I don't need to top at all. The side branches are just natural. It's good to go. But having that one top in there really helps with those side branches and bring things out horizontally, like you mentioned.
Right. For example, I'm finishing up 6-foot tall plants in my tents right now, and I think I topped those 3 times so that I could end up with 22 dozen tops, maybe even more. So that's 6-foot plants. I topped them 3 times.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.